If you listen to the show, you already know that we cannot exist without our sponsors. They are the ones who make things happen behind the scenes. So let's acknowledge Fuji Sports. We've been working with these guys for a while now, not only as far as this podcast is concerned, but also at the RŌL Academy. We've had their gear. I personally use their gis. What a phenomenal product.
Yeah, I mean, jiu-jitsu, judo, MMA, tape, bags, anything you need for your jiu-jitsu journey, you can find at fujisports.com.
Let's talk RŌL TV. There's so much content on there. It's ridiculous at this point. But I think what is even more intriguing, as time went on during the project, we've been recording most of the events that were taking place here at RŌL Academy. At this point, I mean, we have guys like Chris Howder, Armin Fati, Rafael Lovato Sr., and Pete the Greek. I mean, there are so many different events that we've kind of recorded it. Don't you think that's amazing? I mean, points of reflection and kind of going back for all the students to see what really happened and refresh their memory.
Yeah, I think it's great, you know, being able to go back and look at all these high-level practitioners, Octavio Cudo, like one of the names you didn't mention. And I mean, just these guys that have been doing this for so long come in, teach these amazing seminars and workshops, and it's all recorded and there for you to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to get additional savings on all this, type in code RŌL Radio at the coupon and get additional 30% off of your membership.
Nice. Go to rolacademy.tv. What's up, everybody, and welcome back. If you haven't already, please remember to hit the like, share, subscribe, download, listen, and whatever other button there is, and leave us a review wherever you do listen. That ensures that we can continue bringing you the great guests and amazing content that you have come to expect. Today's guest is an Eddie Bravo black belt and the first person to run a 10th planet in the Southeastern United States. Brandon Mccaghren joins us to discuss how a New Year's resolution started his jiu-jitsu career, how showing up all the time for a long time is the recipe for getting good, his unique relationship with Eddie Bravo, and more. Here is the RŌL Radio with the owner and instructor at 10th Planet Jiu Jitsu Decatur, creator of the Professional Grappling Federation, and color commentator for such major jiu-jitsu promotions, including EBI and ADCC, Brandon Mccaghren.
Welcome to RŌL Radio.
And we are live.
Here we go, man.
So this is first official recording of 24.
Yes. Yeah. We don't need to get into all the details and stuff, but yes, this is the first time we're recording this.
Yeah. So, no, it's interesting, Brandon. Thanks for being here. By the way, I gotta ask you right off the bat. You got green screen behind you. You got, I see a board on next to you. I see a light right next to you. What in the hell is going on over there?
It's all disheveled right now because we had to break it all down and take it somewhere for an event. So like everything is just like piled in the corner. It's not good.
It's crammed right in there. Yeah. No, it's all good. But you can see, if you guys watching this on YouTube, you can see the behind the scenes production of the YouTube mastery, right?
Well, YouTube, I don't know about YouTube mastery, but yeah, YouTube.
How is everything going by you? How is life going? New Year started. Big things changing. New Year's resolution. Do you do New Year's resolutions? Do you believe in those? There's like
I'm a resolutions guy. I started jiu-jitsu on a resolution, so
nice.
I'm a resolutions guy for sure.
Yeah. Do you think that those hold up, or most of the time they give us a motivation factor just to start?
I mean, I think it just depends on the person. A motivated person, a disciplined person can keep anything going for a while. But, you know, I think most people aren't very motivated or disciplined, and so it doesn't work out. But, yeah, I've had New Year's resolutions that didn't work out, and I've had some that I'm still running from 20 years ago, you know.
So you said that jiu-jitsu started as a New Year's resolution. How did that go? Give us an insight. How did it all started?
So I was 25, 26. I was about to turn 26. So it was 2006. And my wife was like, hey, listen, we gotta do something. You're getting fat. This is not good. So she's like, what do you want to do? I was like, what if because we've been watching UFC. We're huge fans for years. And she was like, well, what if we did martial arts classes? I was like, okay. I thought we were just going to go like learn. I didn't know that we were going to be fighting. It's like I would have never agreed to that. So anyway, we started at the beginning of the year, like just as a way to like, try to like grab control of my health and my future. And I don't know, dude, I just got obsessed with it. Like within like a month, I was like, okay, I want to do this for the rest of my life. I don't know what that looks like, but
I feel like that's the same story that almost every person who's been in jiu-jitsu for a long time, like like maybe the beginning is different for different people, but I feel like that engagement point, that vortex that sucks us into jiu-jitsu, it's so strong. And so many people talk about this. Like, I tried this. I did it against my own will. Like, I didn't want to do this. Like, and then like, I can't stop this crap. Jeez, like you can't get rid of this anymore. Like it's part of it. Just did you feel the same way?
Yeah, for sure. There's something, I don't have no science to back this up, but there's something like physically addictive about it for sure. I don't know if it's like just human touch and dopamine release but there's something like physically addictive about it. And then if you're the kind of person, like the best games are infinite games, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're games that you never reach the end of. And jiu-jitsu is just like the perfect example of an infinite game. So it's always going to be like psychologically stimulating, like mentally stimulating. But I think there's something physically addictive to it as well.
Talk to him about the first day. What was it? Walk me through this. Do you know what jiu-jitsu is at that point? Like, do you have a deep, obviously you watch fights and stuff, but do you have a deeper understanding of what jiu-jitsu is, or are you kind of going in blind at that point? Like, what does this day look like?
I mean, I'm going in basically blind. Like I'm aware of jiu-jitsu. I'm not aware that you can actually learn how to do it. I thought it was like some secret you got to learn from the Gracies. You know what I'm saying? And so no, I'm basically blind, and I'm definitely not coming in thinking, oh, I'm going to learn how to fight. Like I'm definitely not thinking that. I'm thinking I'm going to do this instead of going to the gym and running on the treadmill. You know, like. So yeah.
And your wife comes with you, or you going by yourself?
Yeah, we started both of us at the same time.
Both at the same time. And okay, so you walk in, and what is your first impression of what you're seeing?
Well, so when we walk in, there was no jiu-jitsu schools in my area. Like I'm out here in Alabama, you know what I'm saying? Like there's still no jiu-jitsu schools in my area except for this one. So what we walk into is a place that advertises that they did NHB is what everybody was calling it.
The whole bars, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's old school. Nobody uses that phrase anymore.
Your wife was up for that?
Oh, dude, she's a super athlete. Like she's way crazier than I am. I'm like the reserved.
We need to have her on the show then.
She's way better looking and way more interesting than I am. So, but what we walked into was a place that had an NHB class on the weekends, and it was a Tung Soo Do Academy. Okay. So the art that we started learning was actually Tung Soo Do Mudok Kwan, which is like a Korean. What you think of when you think of strip mall karate, that was it. But it turns out that this dude who was running the place was like a really well-rounded martial artist. He was very into jiu-jitsu, very into boxing. He wasn't like ranked in jiu-jitsu, but he was like grabbing all the information he could, and he would go and learn. He would like go to a seminar at somebody else's school and learn, and then bring it back. And so they were grappling like 2 or 3 times a week, and then doing the NHB and Vale Tudo style classes on the weekends. And so my first experience was like, I'm taking an adult karate class and there's like 13-year-olds in the room. So that's my first experience. I was like, okay, I can pull this off. I can beat up these kids, but I couldn't beat up these kids. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to set. And so I just started like, I'll be like, all right, I'm gonna get better than this 15-year-old right here. And so I would start, all right, and now I got to get better than this yellow belt. You know,
Low expectations. Is that?
for me, for sure. And I was overweight and out of shape too, so I'm not like thinking that I'm going to be the man at all. But yeah, that's how it went.
What year is this? What year are we talking?
2006, January 2006.
Okay, so I mean, we're talking over a decade ago. I mean, this is I think, you know, oftentimes when I talk to students, especially the new ones, you know, just dipping into jiu-jitsu or martial arts in general, I think the perception that we have of jiu-jitsu today is not the same thing that what existed, you know, 10 or 20 or 30 years ago. It's very different. The evolution is so steep of this sport and this activity that oftentimes is misunderstood. What you and I have experienced way back in the day is not the same thing what we're looking at today.
Yeah, all the grappling that we did in the beginning, striking was allowed.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't actually a jiu-jitsu class. It was like we would grapple at the end.
Yeah.
But like we'd just be fighting on the ground. And so you have to learn to, he would just show us basic stuff that he knew these things well. Like he was a really good grappler. He just wasn't ranked in jiu-jitsu, right? And so he would show us how to bridge and roll, how to shrimp, how to do a Kimura, how to do an arm lock or rear naked choke, you know, and then how to smack the dude in the mouth as well.
While you're doing it,
covered up and didn't get smacked.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of the sparring that we did in the beginning always had strikes involved. So my introduction to jiu-jitsu was that with the assumption that somebody was going to try to hit me, and even though we were just training and going light, you know, and nobody was like super high skilled grappler. It was always with the idea that I got to be careful where my head goes, as I'm gonna get hit.
Well, this is the interesting part, right? Because it's like the moment you introduce that component of getting slapped or hit, things change drastically. Like the rules of engagement change, the environment changes, doesn't it?
I think just the intensity changes and the range changes.
Oh yeah, absolutely, right.
But I don't know. I don't feel, just knowing what I know now, I don't think that I think that if your jiu-jitsu is, oh sorry, is that dinging? I hope that
it's all right.
I think now that if you're good at jiu-jitsu, it's really just the intensity and the range that you have to change when you add strikes in. But it's not, I don't think it's that much different if you do good jiu-jitsu. I really don't.
So we talked to a lot of old school guys. We've had like Henry Atkins, Chris Burns, a lot of guys that like came up under Hickson, who still think that like the striking aspect of it is important. Teaching where you teach, things like that, or what you're teaching, do you still introduce that to your students? Do you still at least let them know, hey, you know, when you're putting yourself in this position or you're fighting, you know, off your back, you got to watch out for all that stuff?
Yeah, we talk about it a lot.
So you still think it's really important? Because I think it always comes up in these conversations, you know, the sport aspect versus the art aspect.
Well, I guess what I would say is I think it depends on what your goal set is, if it's important.
Okay.
If you're coming to learn self-defense, then obviously you got to think about those things. If you're coming to like lay a foundation for your MMA career, then obviously it's important. But I would say the vast majority of people who sign up for jiu-jitsu, that's not really why they're signing up, in my experience. And I've had the school since 2010. It's when I opened, or when I first started teaching classes as a 10th Planet affiliate, as a blue belt, which is crazy. But I would say the vast majority of people come in because they're looking for something to do, or they're looking to get in shape. Or now a lot more people will come through because they're interested in sport jiu-jitsu. And if those things are your goal set, you don't have to worry about getting hit that much. You know what I mean? So it's not really that important for those people. For me, it's important for the things that I love about jiu-jitsu. I like martial arts. Jiu-jitsu just happens to be my favorite martial art. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It happens to be the one that I still practice every day. But I don't think that, I think that's an aspect of jiu-jitsu. But I don't think that's the totality of jiu-jitsu. I don't think your interest in jiu-jitsu has to stem from a place where striking is important. So I think it just varies by the individual.
And I think that's the beauty behind what we do is the diversity of where you can take it and how you can interpret what your interpretation would be. We can get 10 guys in that room and every single one of them will have a different goal behind all of this, and we all do the same thing. We're on the same mat. That's the beauty behind it.
Yeah, dude.
Isn't
Like I can go pick up a guitar and I can have a whole lot of different goal sets in mind, and I should practice differently depending on what my goal sets are. Like if I just want to learn to play guitar and strum a G, C, D, and E minor so I can play around the campfire and pick up chicks as a 16-year-old, then I'm going to learn the guitar in a totally different way than if I have songwriting as my ambition, or if I have, look, I want to be a shredder, or I want to be a professional musician. All of these require a different level of interest in the guitar. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like jiu-jitsu is an art form. At the end of the day, it's martial arts. And I think the expression of the individual is going to tell you how you need to practice.
I love it. Let's go back to the day one again. You walking on the mat, it looks completely different. There is some striking, a reality check. This is definitely not what you expected. The class ends and you walking out of there. What's going through your mind?
Oh, I mean, we didn't grapple at all in those first couple of classes. So what happened at the end of the week is I was like, okay, this is fun. Martial arts is cool. I got this new thing. I'm excited. I'm going to go to the NHB class at the end of the week, not really knowing what NHB means. But he's like, yeah, we spar. I was like, oh, great. It's going to be like scrimmaging in basketball practice. Like we're going to actually play. Okay, cool. We're not going to just learn the forms or whatever. So I go to that and I just got the brakes beat off of me. Like they were sparring. They were
by 15-year-old.
Yeah, they were no, not a 15-year-old. So this guy was at that time in Alabama, there was no distinction between amateur and professional fighting. There was just I fight in a cage or I don't. You know what I mean? There was no commission at all. It's like the total Wild West or the Wild Southeast, I guess. And so I jump in there and I end up sparring with a couple of people who are also terrible and a couple of people who are pretty good and beat me up, but were kind of gentle. But I also sparred with this other dude who literally beat the crap out of me. Like he laid down, he had me in side control, we call it twister side, but like a reverse side control, Kazura Kesa kind of position. And he was just hammer fisted me in my stomach. And then I had just over and over, just torturing me for fun until I literally had diarrhea that night. So he literally beat the crap out of me on my first day. And I was like, all right, I'm going to remember that. And I'll be back next week. And so I just set that dude in my heart as the guy that I had to get some of. So he didn't stay around long. He moved on to somewhere else, but he walked back in to the gym years later when I was a brown belt. And I was like, oh yeah, he came by to get some training in. And I gave him every bit of vitriol that I had saved up from that first round of stuff. I never saw him again.
So it's safe to say that was a memorable moment.
Yeah. That was one of my happiest moments as a martial artist. He walked back in, and I got to give him the sauce.
But there is something behind all of this. It's like even you mentioned at the beginning that there's something addictive about this, and it's hard to pinpoint exactly what it is. And actually, it might be different things for different people. But there is something that draws us into this. We come in, we get beat up. Sometimes we don't even know what's happening. Sometimes we can't even comprehend the surroundings. Like, what the hell just happened to me? And then yet, most people are like, hell, I got to come back. Like, I got to figure this out. Like, it's after all these years being on the mat and teaching and running and doing everything that you do, if you were to pinpoint one thing that draws us back into jiu-jitsu, what would it be?
Well, I think you said it's different for everybody, but like, what's the one thing that everybody has to have in common to get good? Like, what's the one thing? Is that you got to show up all the time for a long time.
You got to be too stupid to quit.
Maybe. Or you've got to enjoy the atmosphere so much that it makes you want to go back. And so for me, that was kind of what made me want to go back. is like, oh, this is a place where I really like the people here. I loved the guy who was the coach, or the Sabonim, we call him at the Tung Soo Do Academy. His name is Jamie Webster. I still love that dude with all my heart to this day. And he just created such a great atmosphere for you to fall in love with martial arts in general. And so for me, and I was doing it with my wife, who is my best friend, and we were doing something together. We had a goal, a common like interest. And so for me, what kept me coming back was just, I loved to be there. And so as I've built my gym over the years, I've tried to create an atmosphere that people, they want to be here. And when they're not able to make it, they're like, oh, I can't believe I got to miss tonight. Because that's what sets the condition for actually getting good, is that you show up all the time, and you show up all the time for a long time. And it almost doesn't matter what your strategy is as a coach. You got to get them through that one factor, as you show up all the time for a long time. And if you can do that, even if the teaching and instruction sucks, you will eventually get good. So I think
there's a lot of, that's one of the things that is often underestimated, from a coaching perspective or business owner perspective for those who do own academies, or even from the student perspective. Like everybody, I think oftentimes we talk about, hey, how do I get good quick? Versus having this deeper understanding that this really takes a while, like patience and discipline and just being stubborn in a sense of showing up, and I'm sure you've heard this phrase, just show up, just simply show up, just keep coming. And like everything else fixes itself.
Yeah. That's the way that you're going to have to do that to get good. But then once you've set that culture in place, then you start refining your teaching methods. You start refining your, how you do things, and you get better and better at that over time by just trying different things, making these adjustments on how long is class. Okay, how much of that is a warm up? Okay, how much of that is focused on technical, precision, and how much of it is live sparring, and what does the curriculum look like? How's it constructed over the course of a month, over the course of the year? How much actual thought goes into it? And you refine all those things and get better. But if you don't have a culture where people want to be there, it doesn't matter what your strategy is. Culture eats strategy for breakfast.
I like that phrase. I like that.
Peter Drucker is the name of the guy that I took that quote from.
Yeah, that's pretty brilliant. I like that. So at which point you get introduced to actual jiu-jitsu?
So probably within about a month of me starting, Carlos Machado came through and was doing a seminar. And I went and I was like, oh my God, this is the part of martial arts that I like best. And I knew that right away, right? And then so I just started like getting obsessed with jiu-jitsu. About 6 months in, Eddie Bravo comes. He's about 2 hours away teaching a seminar. And so me and a buddy of mine jumped in the car, one of my training partners at the time. We drove down. We spent the weekend at this place. The place doesn't even exist anymore. The school doesn't exist anymore. But it was, I think, called Shadow MMA or something like that. It was an MMA school. And they had Eddie Bravo in. I didn't know who Eddie was, except for I had seen him. I didn't understand his credentials, but I'd seen him on the UFC, like doing, like between the scoring between rounds and stuff. So I was familiar with the name, but I didn't know who he was. And man, the first time he put his hands on me, I was like, I have to know everything this guy knows. I'll do whatever it takes. So that was how I really got introduced to the idea that I was going to become a jiu-jitsu black belt one day.
Do you know at that point who you surrounded by? I mean, you have Machado. I mean, that doesn't get closer to the source. You got Eddie Bravo. I mean, one of the pioneers of what we do today. I mean, he redefined the trajectory of where jiu-jitsu was going and is going today. Do you, like, you're there, you're listening to these guys. There was an interest in jiu-jitsu at this point in your mind. Do you know who you're surrounded by?
Well, I mean, I'm told who I'm surrounded by, but I don't really understand the level of expertise that a man can reach in his given discipline at this time. You understand what I'm saying? They're on levels that I don't know exist. And then in the beginning, man, I can't tell the difference between a purple belt and a black belt at this time. They're all kicking my butts. What do I mean,
Yeah.
But yeah, the first time Eddie put his hands on me, he put that big monkey paw on the back of my tricep right there, hooked me in. I was like, I can't move. I just remember looking at his hand and going, dude, how big is his hand? And it was so hairy. I was like, how can it's so hairy? And then he's just dismantling everything I think.
And I bet his personality, it adds layers to on top of. Like, if you've ever met Eddie Bravo, to those who listen, it's like nobody else, right? I mean, it's just that interaction is, just very unique. Let's just leave it at that, right?
There
was no other person like him.
And at that time, I grew up in Alabama, dude. Not just Alabama, but like in the country in Alabama. So like when you think of like, oh, Alabama must be full of rednecks. Think about what the people from Alabama call a redneck. That's where I'm. You know what I'm saying? And so I never been around no culture. I never been around nobody from somewhere else. So I'm just like.
Okay, so in that case, I
get it out by Eddie in the beginning. Like it's kind of like,
sure,
okay, this guy knows a lot, and I want to learn it from him. But what a weirdo, dude!
I was about to ask you. I was like, what is your first impression of Eddie when you meet him? Because I mean, that's a cultural crash almost, right? I mean, talk about two opposites, right?
Yeah, total opposites. Yeah, I mean, I don't get to know him in the beginning. Right. I just kind of am around him. So it's not that weird. But like as I'm around him more and more, because I started like obsessing over jiu-jitsu. So I'm very obsessive. Like once I get my hooks in on something, I'm like, okay, I'm all in. Nothing else in my life matters. Kind of, over the top, kind of obsessive. And so I'm obsessing over jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, okay, I got to fly to LA, spend a week out there. Lindsay's like, you're crazy. Why are you doing that? It's like, I got to do it. And then he's teaching a seminar 10 hours away. I'm like, I'm driving to this seminar. You're crazy. Yeah, I'm crazy. And so the more I do that and the more I'm around him, the more I realize like, well, this dude is straight up weird, dude. But what happens is over the course of time, we start to develop like a really strong friendship. And so I've been training with Eddie, basically since the 6-month mark. And so like, I don't know, probably like June or May or something of 2006. And he's just over time turned into one of my closest friends and obviously like my jiu-jitsu mentor. But our relationship has evolved past like student and teacher at this point to where I really consider him like one of my close friends.
And that's what I hear. I mean, I've met Eddie a couple of times, and actually this year, for the first time, actually, I went to his HQ, and we have a mutual friend over there, and it was great to be part of that environment and hang out with him off the mat even, and really engage on that little bit more personal level. So that was a great experience. But I do see how many would consider this as very unusual experience from just a personality perspective. So at the same time, many do tell that once you get to know him, he's very, the relationship gets very strong. And
he's a beautiful person, like inside, you know what I'm saying? He's crazy, no question. And we're very different people. Like, like he likes different things than I do. He sees the world in a different way than I do, but he's a good man and he's a super loyal friend. And he was like, he believed in me because he could see how hard I work. And so he believed in me when there wasn't really good evidence suggesting that he should believe in me. You know what I'm saying?
Explain that. What do you mean by that?
Well, I wasn't very talented. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I was like setting the world on fire. It took me 4 years to get my blue belt, and I was working hard. Like plenty of people, it takes them 4 years to get to blue belt, but they're just like coming in casually. That's not what I was doing.
So let me ask you the opposite way. What did he see in you that made him anchor those or plant those seeds?
Well, I think he just, I think he knew what we were just talking about is that the one ingredient that everybody has to have is you got to do it all the time for a long time. And he saw that I was the kind of person who was going to do it all the time for a long time. And that was worth him investing some of his love into. And so that's what he did. And so even when there was no real good reason to believe that I would be good at jiu-jitsu, he was gracious with his time. He was gracious with his knowledge, and he was just always been really special. Eddie's always been really special to me.
At which point do you realize that doing all the time for a very long time is an important factor behind jiu-jitsu skill set, or really the developing or continue doing this? Do you have like an aha moment at what point of training, or is like, damn, I really got to do this for a while?
I think so. I'm 25 when I start martial arts, right? And so for me, I'm already like a fledgling adult. So I've already seen this be true in other fields, like we brought up guitar, like music. I know some great musicians, grew up with some incredible musicians. And even at that time, I knew some really, really amazing guitar players, especially. But what did they all have in common is they've been playing for years and years and years. And they practice all the time. Like, okay. And I grew up loving basketball. Like, yeah, there's a lot of like talented people in basketball, but the people that are really making it happen, they do it all day, every day, and they've been doing that for 10 years or 20 years. You know what I'm saying? So what I may not have like consciously understood it, but I did understand it because I'd seen skill development already in 2 other fields, like high level skill development. And so, yeah, maybe I don't consciously note that, but I know what it takes to get good at a thing. And it's not about the method as much as it is about the culture and the consistency.
Well, let me ask you then, Brandon. So how come, if you see it, how come most people don't? Like, why is it so difficult for us as humans to just simply, and today instructors know this. Hey, listen, this is a marathon. You got to invest yourself. You get consistency, and the long investment is what gets you successful in jiu-jitsu. And even if they preach this, even if they recommend this or suggest this to the students, most, not all, but most don't see it, don't feel it.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think most people do, especially coaches, if they're good, if they're a black belt, they do understand that.
I was talking about students. I was talking about students.
Oh, students.
Students.
Oh, well, most people have, they just don't, they've never been around a high skill level individual. You know, like most people, like we grow up and our dad works at a factory or he's a lawyer or whatever, and he just kind of comes home and then he's at home and then he goes to work. You don't see the skill development because you don't listen to him talk about his law practice or whatever. But the way he got to be a good lawyer was, you know, doing law for a long time and going to school. But because it's not an interesting thing to you, maybe you don't like dig in and really understand what made him good at his thing, or even understand that he is good. It's just a job. But I think most people just don't get to spend time around high skill individuals. But anybody that's a high skill individual has gone through the same process, which is they do it all the time, and they've done it for a long time.
I mean, you're absolutely right. If you talk to anybody who has achieved a point of success in their life, on the mat, off the mat, jiu-jitsu, non-jiu-jitsu, business, doesn't matter, sports, all of them will tell you that motivation will get you started, but consistency and determination will really get you in the long term to the goals and levels of success that you can really achieve.
I feel like motivation is a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you have to be motivated enough to start and to do the thing, but really what you need is to do the thing even when you're not motivated. And I think that's right. What separates the wheat from the chaff.
I agree 100%. The consistency and determination that you like it, you don't like it. Is it raining, snowing? Doesn't matter. You just do it. You keep showing up. You just keep showing up. So how come most don't see it that way?
I mean, most people are NPCs, aren't they? Like they're just non-playable characters. They're going through the motions.
I can't argue with that, but
yeah. I mean, I know that's rude, but I think that's true. Like most people are just going through the motions, or they're so beat down by their circumstances that they don't believe that it's possible. But
Is
really,
there any?
if you could just grab a skill and public speaking, and then put those two skills together, then you're gonna be successful in whatever it is you want to do.
Do you think it's because there's so little instant gratification in jiu-jitsu?
Well, jiu-jitsu specifically, yeah, it's not a microwave. It's a crockpot. You know what I mean?
Dude, I love the phrases. Dude, you're killing me. It's not. I love it. It's not a microwave. I love it.
Well, we talked a little bit about like expectations in the beginning of like what type of jiu-jitsu you're looking for, I guess, right? And I feel like people come in here, and we've seen people that come in a lot in the beginning, and they seem like they're 100% on board, and like what you were saying, they're going to be at it. In my limited coaching experience and stuff, to me, they look like they're in it all the time for a long time, but it's all the time for a short time. Can you make that distinction with people early on, or do they just at some point fall off?
No, man, it's almost never the guy you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
So we've had the gym for 13 or 14 years. It's never the guy you think it's going to be.
Yeah. That's the mind-blowing part for me. Like, I've seen at this point thousands of people coming through the mats and facility over. Like, my academy's been open for 9 years, and there's so many people filtering in and out, and sometimes it's like the ghosting guy, the guy that slides under the radar. Like, that's the guy just keeps training. Like, the guy that you almost ignore. Like,
yeah. So me and Lindsay, my wife, were just talking about this last night, and there's these two dudes at our gym that signed up, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 3, I guess. And when they signed up, I mean, you're like, no way, these guys are going to get good. You know what I'm saying? But they're best friends, and they signed up together, and they trained together, and they've both recovered from separate injuries together, and they just keep showing up. And we were talking about them last night. Like, man, can you believe those guys stayed around? Like, never saw it coming. Those guys are beating people up now.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, you got guys who, started all hot and want to train hard, and then somehow they just faded away.
I think it's harder for a talented athletic individual to stay with it. Because
why? Explain.
Because it's not the deciding factor. Athleticism and talent is not the deciding factor.
What is?
Consistency and longevity are the deciding factor. And like the intellectual side of things plays a larger factor. I'm not saying it's the most important even, but it plays a larger factor in jiu-jitsu than it plays in most athletic endeavors, right? So like if I'm going to go play basketball and I expect to be good, if I'm 6'7", that's a huge factor. But if I'm 5'8" and trying to learn basketball, that's a huge factor. But it's not really that big of a factor in jiu-jitsu. Like athleticism is a big factor, but it's not the deciding factor. Like there are ways to mitigate a lot of the athleticism and then learn to become an athlete over time by just learning to put yourself in a position where anybody can make an athletic movement from here. Like plenty of jiu-jitsu or plenty of guys in the beginning, they'll be in a spot and they're like, what do I do from here? I'm like, you need to put yourself in a position to do what an athlete would do right here. Like you may not be an athlete, but nobody's an athlete when their neck is folded over like this. If you get good posture, you may not be a great athlete, but at least you're in position to do what a good athlete would do right here. And you can do your version of being a good athlete from a good position. And so I think that just little things like that makes a huge difference in how well.
This is why many consider the mental stimulation is stronger than the physical stimulation in jiu-jitsu. Like it plays a bigger factor, the ability to troubleshoot and sustain that mental resiliency.
to the situations and what we are trying to achieve in all these scenarios that we as they unfold around us, and we troubleshoot we're playing the jiu-jitsu game, if you will. Listen, I know you have a hard out, and we do keep this episode. We're gonna keep this episode shorter than typically.
Sorry.
No,
we're good.
you're fine. But what we do at the end of every episode, and I want to get this out of the way so we don't miss it. But what we do at the end of every episode is we ask you a question from our previous guest.
Okay.
But he had no clue that you will be answering it. So think of it as he asked a question completely in blind, and Gary's going to take a lead on this, and always leads to interesting, pivots the conversation in an interesting way.
Yeah. So this is from Eddie Kone, and his question is: if there was no YouTube or social media, how would you propagate the message of jiu-jitsu?
I would just go to the mall and beat people up.
Is that the recipe? Is that how you guys do it down there, right?
We don't have a mall, dude.
But on that note, I mean, your online presence is pretty strong. Do you feel like that component of teaching jiu-jitsu is important today?
Oh yeah, I think it's crucial. I think it's we all have like, oh, this guy speaks a language that I hear. I'm not talking about English or Spanish or Cantonese or whatever. I'm talking about like this guy. Well, you were talking about, oh, Brandon, I like the phrases you use. Well, some people are going to hate the phrases I use, and I'm not the right voice for that guy. But I might be the right voice for you to turn an idea on in your mind. And I think the more you expose yourself to different styles of teaching, different styles of, or different ways of seeing a problem, different problem solving filters, the better. And eventually you start to settle in on a guy that really speaks your language, Like,
do you think that
I love listening to John Danaher. I like to hear the philosophy. I like to hear all the talk. I love that. My wife, she can't stand it. She doesn't want to hear somebody sit around and wax eloquent on the merits of an underhook. You know what I'm saying? But to me, I'm like, yo, dude, I would listen to a podcast called Underhooks by John Danaher. Like every episode, a different 2 hours about the underhook. But she can't stand that. So
do you think that that's one of the contributors of the evolution jiu-jitsu, because it's so available everywhere by everybody to everybody?
Absolutely. It's like probably the most important part of what's happened in the last 5 years.
Do you think this is going to go away anytime soon? Do you think we're going to get... No, let me rephrase. Do you think we're going to get oversaturated with information?
No, because the market size is growing. So, I get to go... I'm really lucky. I'm really blessed, man. I get to be the voice of most of the pretty much all the major promotions in the sport. ADCC, Combat Jiu-Jitsu, all of them, dude. I'm doing them all. I own my own grappling league. I'm going to IEGA. So, hold on. My wife is texting me. Yes, I'm going to get Logan.
This is our cue to wrap this up.
I got this. Heart, smiley face. Don't worry, baby. I got it. What were we talking about? Jiu-jitsu? What was I saying?
Yeah, something about that. But
so I get to see all of these things. I'm watching the growth of the industry. I'm standing right there, hearing these conversations, hearing these deals go down, seeing the athletes understand. I know how much these guys are getting paid. I know how much this promotion just spent. So I have a unique perspective, I feel like, on how much the sport is actually growing. My prediction is that none of us are actually prepared for the explosion of growth that's about to happen. I think that we're on the same trajectory that skateboarding was on. So imagine skateboarding ramps in like this and then and then it just pops, right? I think we're about right here on that curve. And I think we're 18 months away from our sport being 10 times the size it is right now.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
I am right. You'll go back and
write it down.
Remember this. Yeah, write it down. Write it down. Call me when it hits.
When it happens. Awesome. Listen, we know you got to go. Thanks for hanging out with us.
I love the stories. I love the connection, and more more than anything, I love the phrases. That made my day. I mean, honestly, that made my day. Gary?
Yeah, I love it too. We had a great time. I'm sorry it's so short.
Yeah, not bad. It's totally me.
No, and hopefully we'll do another one. That's all.
yeah,
We'll make it up at another time.
Call your boy.
Sound good? All right, beautiful. All right.
Let's wrap this up.
Peace, man. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to RŌL Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.